You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Simply Drunk, and tonight, on this mini-sode for episode 196, we'll be taking a look at the most recent news, both around the game and its competitive scene, before we jump into our opening weekend discussion. Now that the Overwatch League is upon us, finally, the dark days are over, my friends. So before we jump into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank anyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch. We're starting a little bit earlier tonight than usual. And I do want to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar. And Ed, you know, it's been a kind of light news week. It's a short recording week, too, since we recorded on Thursday this past week. But, you know, we did have another update in regards to the PTR. It's a big week for competitive Overwatch with the Overwatch League starting, and we'll get to see how the viewership is going to be with the move off of Twitch over to YouTube. So, still some pretty big storylines to follow this week, but how has the week been treating you, my friend?
Freaking chaos. That is, to put it lightly, it's chaos. So, like we've talked about, like I have at this, the Overwatch League by the numbers, I have Dropping Spicy, the Apex show, and like we have the opening week of Overwatch. Season 4 of Apex just dropped yesterday. And then like the reason we're starting a little early today is my parents are coming home from Florida, and I have to go to the airport and pick them up, and then we have all these family things planned out because we're only going to be home for 4 days, and it's it's chaotic to say the least. So yeah, but it's been fun. It's a fun chaotic. Like, I like it when games I enjoy playing have new things. I just wish they weren't all in the exact same week. That would be ideal. But how's your week been?
It's been getting better. Obviously, you know, last week was kind of a week from hell since I was sick basically the entirety of the week. It's kind of been a day-by-day process because Monday my voice did not hold up. Yesterday it went fine, so knock on wood. Hopefully we'll be okay knowing this is a mini-sode tonight. But all in all, like, I'm pretty excited. You know, I actually bought the Battle Pass for Apex, even though I'm absolute trash at the game. I picked up Revenant, primarily because his ultimate is named after me.
And his he basically has Sombra's EMP on cooldown.
Right. So
and he's made by Hammond Robotics.
Yeah. So in case
he killed the Doomfist clone, and he's voiced by Reinhardt.
Yeah. So in case there weren't enough Overwatch parallels with the character, he does have basically EMP.
There's 2 more parallels. 2 of his legendary skins are basically
the Sun God.
Are clones of Zenyatta.
Yeah, and then you also have like the goat cane for like Diablo.
So there's nothing similar about all of this at all.
Absolutely not. But you know, it's open a weekend. I got my jerseys in. I got 3 new jerseys, as we talked about that prior week. Unfortunately, you haven't gotten yours in yet, which is kind of a downer. But you know, chances are, Ed,
I got my custom one in.
You're probably still gonna get him before opening weekend, so there is that. But with that being said, I don't want to waste any time because I do know, you know, you got shit to do. So let's see what's going on around the game. And I'll be honest, we're just kind of waiting for the next competitive season, primarily. We do have a little bit of news in regards to a new patch that was deployed to the public test realm on Tuesday of this week. So that was on yesterday, which would be February 4th. And this is a patch that will bring hero pools into the game. Now, in the notes, it said that throughout the season, we will be adjusting the types of hero pools available. In addition, it is possible we will also adjust the frequency with which they change. Now, they've been pretty clear with the fact that, we're likely going to be seeing tweaks to the overall values off of, like, the 1 tank, 1 support, and 2 damage heroes. What would you assume would be, like, the far end of the scale in regards to the number of heroes that we would potentially rotate out from the pool here?
I think we're going to go with 4 a week. I think they're going to go with the same, not the same exact characters as the Overwatch League.
Okay.
Because we know the Overwatch League, which we'll get into, is doing 1 tank, 1 support, 2 DPS. I think the game will actually do that exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to work out on which heroes. If it will be random, let's say, or will it be most played, or what? They have not given us any indication on what that will be.
Yeah, and I don't feel like, in regards to the latter hero pool, that there are going to be, like, exceptions to the rule where, like, Torbjorn has never seen him play, so we're never going to, rotate him out like it would be in the Overwatch League, essentially.
Yeah, you're going to get those. You're going to have weeks where, like, the 2 DPS heroes are heroes that are not played. Like, it's going to come up just by, the laws of math. Like, it's just going to happen. So, you're going to have to deal with it. But I'll be interested to see if that first week, if they go big or go home.
Mm-hmm.
If they're like, all right, we're going to ban Sigma, Baptiste, May Reaper.
Right.
And just see what the hell happens.
Yeah, or like double sniper or something.
Yeah, like, just go all out. Or if they're going to do, like, Reaper and Torbjorn, which is like, all right, whatever. Like,
right.
So it will be interesting. I'm excited to see how they implement this. They are making it very, 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 very clear that just because it's in the game does not mean it's staying in the game.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically a live PTR for this. Like, they're put it in there to test it out.
Right.
And they're hoping it works out. I think all of us are hoping it works out. But if it doesn't, I don't think they're going to hesitate to pull it.
No, probably not. So outside of that, a couple of other things that they were looking at is maybe not as impactful. Like, I know they were saying that a group leader can't use the leave his group option while the competitive game is currently in progress. I honestly didn't even know that this was a thing. Then again, there haven't really been instances where I'm like, F this, let's get the heck out of here, because we're not competitive leavers at this point. But I thought that was kind of like an eyebrow raiser in that case. They also had tweaked the timer for the initial assemble heroes phase of the game for games that are being played on Assault, Hybrid, Control, and Payload. So that's going from 40 seconds to 35 seconds. Not too much of a differential there. But probably the more impactful change here were some more like quality of life changes. One of which being that the Maze Ice Wall will now have a visual damage state when it is under half health.
And have you seen what it looks like?
I actually have not, no.
It's... Like, it's delayed a little bit. Just not a whole lot, but it's delayed a little bit. It's not going to be something that you're just like, oh, it's at half health, keep damaging it, because you're already attacking it.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a nice little quality of life feature. I will give it that.
Yep. So the other thing that they're looking at is interactions between stuns. So they're just looking to make it more consistent. So by stuns, I mean like things like the Flashbang, Grenade, Earth Shatter, Freeze, Sleep, and Accretion. So basically what's going to happen is new stuns will only be replacing existing stuns if their duration is longer than the time remaining on the current one. So for instance, like a Flashbang will not apply to someone who had been Earth Shattered. And basically the dev team had been using a minimum guaranteed stun time of 1.5 seconds, which would be equivalent to the sleep in regards to, the time it takes you to fall down, as well as, how long it takes you to stand back up at that point. So, this, I don't think, like, chained stunning was, like, a huge thing in the game, but this just seems that they're just trying to make the gameplay more consistent across the board, so I'm all for it on that case. But I don't really see this being like a huge like impact in regards to competitive play here.
No, I don't see it being like, okay, this is going to change everything. Now, maybe it could have been that way in Goats.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have really been something like that, but now it's like you said, chain stunning is not really a thing anymore. So yeah, it's a decent quality of life change. That's really what we're looking at here.
So the last thing that they added was a lot of stuff with the workshop. So I really don't know too much about the whole coding thing, but basically they added script diagnostics panel as well as subroutines. So they also added workshop actions, optimizations, and values. But the bigger thing is it actually added some new custom game maps to the workshop. You had the workshop chamber, the workshop island, and then the workshop expanse. Now, these new maps range anywhere from 40 meters by 40 meters all the way up to 900 by 900 meters in regards to the expanse. So the Expanse map is actually the largest Overwatch map that was ever released, and part of the reason why they were doing this is with a lot of the workshop modes, and, you and I can attest to this because we've played some of them, there are a lot of workshop modes that tend to use, like, the top part of a map or, like, an out-of-bounds area that you normally wouldn't be able to get to in order to play out these modes. So this is kind of like their way of making sure like there is just a blank canvas essentially for all of the workshop creators to really just kind of have their way with things. And I did see that Darwin had the sprint racing workshop mode that we had played with Soldier 76, where basically if you bump into anything you get slowed down, but as long as you don't hit anything, you continue to sprint faster and faster, and it's pretty comical just seeing how fast you go on a map that is essentially, like, probably like 10, 15 times bigger than anything that we've seen in game so far.
Now, can they add and remove things on these maps? Or is it like kind of a set map?
I'm pretty sure it's just kind of like a set map at this point. Like, there still aren't ways to, like, add obstacles or things like that.
Okay. I mean, from what I've seen about all this is, it's kind of like the glove, or like Overwatch took the gloves off, and we're like, just go to town. Like, here's a billion things to do what you never thought you could do. Go make some more, because I do not think the workshop worked out as intended. It was great in theory, but I think they saw a massive decline in it because nothing really stuck. But now that they're hoping that like maybe by doing some like all this stuff they can change so much that they will be able to get some game modes that might stick, or something like that, like maybe like Soldier 76 Sprint, stuff like that. I like, this is all when they start talking about like new workshop actions, like if else, while, and I know those words.
False, true.
But in regards to writing and like kind of coding to some degree maps using this, no idea. It is very much over my head, which is hard to do considering the size of my goddamn head. So It's cool. I'll be interested to see what they actually come up with.
Mhm.
If you make me play that Roadhog Hook game again, though, I'm out.
To be
It's
true.
horrible.
Is it-
Hated that game.
I don't know. Everyone else seems to love it, so you were the odd
Everyone
man out.
else is sadists.
If you say so. So basically that's been it for like anything in game so far this past 6
Mhm.
days. So let's go ahead and see what's going on around the league. So obviously this past week we were talking about hero pools. That was like the big discussion. And I do want to note that we had the vice president of the Overwatch League, that being John Spector, sitting down with ESPN. And this was a little bit after the announcement was made about hero pools. So he shed some light a bit more on like what we expect to see in regards to like the Overwatch League sides of things. And he said like it's not going to just be a what tank is played the most. We're going to take several heroes that are getting a significant playtime in OWL matches, and we'll put them into a pool. Randomly pulling out from the pool 1 tank, 2 damage, and 1 support hero, unlike the Our Recap pool, which couldn't fit a tank. Quick side note, which I laughed at as soon as I saw that.
R.I.P. Bob.
So, I thought this was interesting because, like, for the most part, it kind of seemed like they were going to be targeting the meta, and they wanted to go after the perceived problem childs or the characters that were more frequent at the time. Now, ideally, they want to get to the point where, once they're making tweaks when they pull heroes and they put them back into the game, that maybe we're not seeing that same hero at the same percentage of playtime. But, would it be a little off-kilter thinking, like the second or the third most played in a situation where they're only pulling 1 ends up being the one that they select? Or are you okay with knowing that there's going to be a little bit more variance with what we know now?
I actually am fine with a little bit more variance. I think it just adds a whole level of intrigue to the game that wasn't there before.
Mhm.
It's you will never have a stale meta again if they keep hero pools around. And I think that's good for the game. I truly think that's good for the game. Because you will, one, it's good for the players because it means that more players will be on rosters. Those with more diversity and flexibility will get paid more. You're not going to have like, okay, we're only going to have 7 people, 8 people on the roster, and you just have to learn every hero. Like they're going to have to sign certain people and have flexibility. That's why, this is scary that it's, it plays into the Shock's hands.
Mhm.
I'm a little scared about all this,
Mhm.
but they did it right, and it just worked out in their favor. It might come back to bite the Titans in the ass. We don't know because they only have 8 people as of right now. They haven't done a team video yet, so they could be adding 4 to 6 more people. We just haven't found out yet. But it's just one of those things where I'm starting to really come around on the hero pool. Like I was at first, but then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to watch the same, 6v6 every week.
Well, I think for me, Ed, the thing that I want to see is what the state of compositions we're going to be seeing going into March. Because based off of, like, the things that we've been hearing in regards to scrims and there being, like, regional compositions that are being ran and kind of, like, alternatives in between those themselves, maybe there's not even going to be a need for hero pools at this point. But I feel like with the plan of having quick balance changes and hero pools, at least collectively, it does kind of eliminate the fact that we're probably not going to be seeing a specific hero played on a week-to-week basis throughout the entirety of the season. They're trying to do away with that. So one tricking is basically going to be a thing in the past, and maybe this is going to be a boon for some of the Overwatch League teams. Maybe some of the teams that we're kind of dogging on are actually gonna end up being a lot better because of this.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get a little bit of you're gonna get two tricking. As stupid as that sounds, but you're gonna get two tricking. So like I'm looking at tanks. Well, right now Orisa's in a bad spot.
Right.
Which I'm fine with. So if you have a main tank who excels at Reinhardt Winston, you're good every week. Because they're not gonna ban both Reinhardt and Winston. They're only banning one. Same with flex tanks. If you are going to be, if you're Sigma Diva type of thing, you're going to see a lot of two tricks with in regards to tank line and support line. So you're going to have a lot of that. Now DPS, that's a whole different ballgame. that I think the DPS is going to be the biggest up in the air, more so than tanks or support.
Yeah, then you have someone like Leaf who is like, I don't care what they ban, I'll just play whatever.
Yeah, it's it's when you only take away one support. I mean, you still only have 5 support left that you can choose from. You're not going to get the type of like crazy compositions from supports if you're just banning one and then you have to choose 2 of the other 5. Right. Like you're gonna have less like variety. But with DPS, when you're banning 2, you have the ability to basically take 2 out of the comp. Like if what is meta one week, they could just be like, all right, we're gonna ban those 2 DPS, and then it's gonna completely change everything. Whereas, like, let's say, all right, perfect example. Let's say they take a dive. Okay, so dive, typically you're looking at Winston Diva, Lucio, Mercy. Am I correct?
Or Zenyatta, depending on which one you're going for.
And then DPS generally was Genji Tracer,
with the alternative being either a sniper or Pharah.
Exactly. So now imagine if you run that. Well, all right. So dive. Let's say they take out Winston. Well, you can put in Wrecking Ball, and you still have a dive comp because you're running the same thing almost. But let's say you take out Tracer Genji. That then you have no dive comp. So like it kind of changes the dynamics of all of it. So I hope they do this right. And not like, oh, well, we will like get rid of the 4th and 5th most played heroes, DPS heroes, and it's like, well, that's not going to do shit,
right?
Like, then that means nothing. You have to get one of the top 2 every week, otherwise you're not changing anything. So.
Yeah, and it's important to note too, and this is something even Spectre brought up, that in the past teams had really been zeroed in on whatever was meta. There really weren't a lot of teams that were experimenting to try to quote break the meta or just try something a little bit off kilter outside of the hunters. Let's be real. Outside of like triple DPS compositions, there really wasn't anyone trying to break goats at the time. No. Now, for me, I guess the really big question is, what is the overall quality of the games going to be with the introduction of hero pools to the Overwatch League? Because we've actually had head coaches go on record saying that, and this is what Harsha said from the Outlaws, that he's estimating that scrims will be played around 60% or slightly lower compared to scrims in 2019 due to, the new travel schedule, all of that good stuff. And this isn't even accounting the fact that they're going to be basically scrimming under a new meta on a week-to-week basis. So, like, that's the thing I'm cautious about. Now, I will note that the pros did have a Q&A with the dev team.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that out due to something that the Shock main take Superhead said on his Twitch stream. And while he didn't really discuss anything at length or details about it, he just wanted to, make sure, like, people need to just stop talking shit and spreading fake news. And he said that it was very insightful and, productive. But it seems to be like a 30-minute ordeal here. Now, chances are, this Q&A probably revolved around either game balance or the impact of hero pool within the game and how it's going to impact the league. So I want to get your thoughts on if you feel like we will see differences in the frequency in regards to when we're seeing these hero pools being implemented into the game, or, what else we could see from it, because, like, there's part of me that thinks, well, like, if all this talk about what's been going on in scrims is true, and we're seeing different regional metas and alternatives to each one on both sides of the fence, maybe there might not even be a need to see hero pools, but then it gets to the point where can the game balance it, or the philosophy that they have in place at this point be enough to sustain that sort of flexibility on a week-to-week basis? Because who knows, there could be a new hero or a new map or just whatever come along the way that can kind of just dictate where the compositions are heading towards. But, right now it's a wait-and-see approach for me. But do you feel like the Overwatch League will differentiate more so in how they handle the hero pools compared to what we'll be seeing in our, everyday games at this point?
Well, I think they should. I'm not a fan. I'm a big fan of the hero pool. I'm not a fan of the 1 week.
Right.
I think that needs to be bumped up to every 2 weeks, at the least, because then you're just basically telling teams, well, you could just be unfortunate and have a bad week, like 2 weeks in a row, that just don't fit yours, and then be off 2 weeks, which would have been perfect for your team, and you're just shit out of luck. I think taking 2 weeks instead of 1 would alleviate some of that, and I think the pros probably have brought that up, so maybe that will change, maybe. But as far as, like, what kind of hero pools we'll see, I think the hero pools will be vastly different from the our ladder to what the Overwatch League plays. Because I think people have an idea what the meta is, but that is not the meta that is actually going on in game. So they may think like that everyone's running, goats, say for instance. Let's say everyone's running goats, for instance. But in reality, nobody, like 20% of the teams are actually running goats. And 30% are running something else. Then it just makes a whole different meta, but it's perceived to have that meta because that's what the pro players. So it'll be interesting to see if they follow the same tactics of we're gonna ban based on the play from like the most used heroes, and if they do that with the ranked ladder, because if they do that, then you get an accurate depiction of who's actually playing what, rather than everyone trying to assume what everyone's playing. Kind of like the Genji stats that they came up with.
I kind of wonder if at any point they'll look at like win rate percentage in regards to like the ladder side of things to kind of dictate maybe some of the heroes to remove too.
Yeah.
It's not something they've brought up.
And where are they going to use a broad, like, because they can't do hero pools based on your rank.
Right, because things are going to get played at different ranks too. And, in a situation where we are seeing a ton of different Overwatch League metas, that'll basically mirror what we're seeing in ladder too, essentially, since a lot of people are just basing their perception of the meta off of what they're seeing in these more competitive sceneries too.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting. We need more clarification, which is a common theme with
Strange.
the Overwatch and the Overwatch League. At this point, it's like we're not getting all the information in a timely manner.
Yeah, like roster announcements.
Yeah.
Strange.
I am not surprised in the slightest, though, that the pros had Q&A with the devs.
Yeah, because
Like,
it kind of seemed like they weren't clued in at all about it, and it just kind of like dropped on their lap, and they're just like, oh.
I don't think that it was dropped on their lap. It might have dropped on their lap like 2 weeks prior. 3 weeks prior.
You really think Custa could have kept quiet for that long?
Well, shit, XQC was talking about it, like how he had to sign an NDA like 2 weeks before it was announced. So if XQC knows about it, the pros know about
That's
it.
because they're probably planning on having XQC doing like a sponsored stream as soon as it goes live.
Mm-hmm. But they would probably tell the pros and XQC. They're not going to tell XQC and not the pros.
Yeah, I can see
Like, that's just not a thing.
I don't know. Either way, it's going to have an impact not only on the game, but the competitive scene, and I'm really curious to see how everything's going to shake out on that end. Now, that being said, we did have a couple of promotions going on in regards to the Overwatch League with sign-ins. We got the Atlanta Reign bringing back Kodak. And they also added another main support who they picked up from Team Envy, that being Fire. So Kodak basically had spent the past 6 months on the ATL Academy team. ATL Academy did some good. They were the better NA team in the grand scheme of things. And Fire had been with Envy dating back to 2018. Envy being really the other dominant NA team in the grand scheme of things on that end. But basically, you saw Kodak this past season get the nod initially, and then we saw Dogman basically taking over the role for the Reign. So I will say, like, even looking back at how Kodak was doing compared to Dogman at the time, they were very interchangeable. It's not like one of them was dead set better than the other. Like, their stats were, like, neck and neck. Maybe only, like, a 3 to 5% differential in most of the, like, big stat categories. So I didn't really think it was a huge blow whenever Kodak was swapped out and Dogman was swapped in, or vice versa. But Atlanta Reign, Kodak wanted to, like, stay busy. He wanted to play, so he moved to ATL Academy. But, like, he was never, like, away from the Atlanta Reign themselves, because it was still competing in the team house and all that good stuff. So, he was still sitting in there every step of the way throughout the Overwatch League season as well. And I do want to know, like, Fire wasn't the only Envy support player to get picked up this week either, as Dallas Fuel actually promoted him to the main roster as well. This is basically coming after a recent move for Dallas after Mickey had moved on to become a content creator for Team Envy. So that kind of, like, freed up a roster slot heading into opening weekend. So you got Crimzo, who was the other part of this Envy backline since July of 2018. And Envy, as I said, they were one of the better NA teams. They had top finishes in the North America West in 2019. They were runner-ups in the Atlantic Showdown. So you got a 4-man backline for Dallas Fuel at this point, with Unco, Closer, Harry Hook, and now Crimzo. So I don't know who's gonna get the nod. I know, like, Harry Hook's kind of, like, been all over the place in regards to, like, what heroes he's been playing on the support line. And, part of me just thinks, like, I don't think Unco was, like, a huge issue on Dallas this past season, but, I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not Closer was actually communicating with Unco or not. So maybe there is a shot that Crimson might just come in and get the starting nod. But either way, we are seeing more and more teams staying in-house when it comes to some of these talent pickups, and we saw that on both fronts here.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it on both fronts. I think I think picking up. I don't think this is the end of Unko. I think Unko is still their main flex support,
Hmm.
but you're seeing Crimzo get brought in to deal with the hero pools almost. Like maybe they need to run 2 flex supports because let's say Lucio gets banned, so they want to run like Moira, Anna, or something
Yeah,
like
or like Bat Zen.
Bap Zen, or something of that nature. You no longer need like a main support with characters like Bap and Moira out there. So maybe he gets brought in certain situations where they're going to run Unko and Crimzo and bench closure. That in my mind is how I see it. I don't see Crimzo overtaking Unko. Part of it is because, well, you know what? Crimzo's been around forever. What changed to all of a sudden make him like starting Overwatch League caliber player
Hmm.
that nobody saw for the past like 2.5 years?
Yeah, and I think the most common thing that I've seen, at least with the community feedback on this particular sign-in, was everyone's kind of looking at Note, and everyone was kind of perplexed as to why they didn't pick up another flex tank, because everyone just has been labeling Note, a diva one-trick, which, based off of the success that he has had on other heroes, you can kind of agree with, but I don't know, like, there's definitely some flex things that were on the market that I could have seen Fuel maybe picking up, but with all of the Korean talent that was picked up, it didn't quite fit the same theme that we'd been seeing with the other Dallas moves this offseason.
Yeah, I was kind of perplexed that they didn't pick up another flex tank. Because I don't even know what they're gonna do. Maybe they really like Gamsu maybe on Sigma, and he could play Sigma. And then you have Thrill in there, or Trill. Sorry, Thrill's our friend who does VR. Trill is the one who's on the Dallas Fuel. So yeah, it's very weird that they only have one flex tank. But again, I don't know how we are gonna see this. Like, it could, and I brought this up yesterday with Sinatra. Is, well, what happens if they go Ryan Zarya?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe you can have Doa or Decay or AKM or whoever on Zarya instead of Note. That kind of thing. So they could be like your de facto backup flex tank type of situation. So who knows? We don't know how things are going to turn out. We don't know what the meta is going to be. Truly. It's a lot of questions with no answers for the next 3 days. And then we'll get our answers.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the opening weekend discussion for our main topic. So we got New York and Dallas serving as the homestands this weekend. So we kick off on Saturday in New York at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We have the Toronto Defiant going up against the Paris Eternal, followed by London Spitfire versus New York Excelsior. Then we jump over to Dallas, starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. We got the LA Gladiators going up against the Vancouver Titans, followed by the LA Valiant versus Dallas Fuel. So those are our 4 matches on Saturday. And, a couple of things to bring up. Paris will not have Sparkle for a majority of the season, but they also won't have who will be their starting off tank in Hanbin, as he is currently 17 and won't be of age until the Eternals' 3rd game of the season. So this is Paris still not quite at their final form, or even like their second to final form. So, Smek's more than likely going to get the nod. If not, there still is the option of running Nico at off tank. But, with the Smeks pickup, I don't expect that to happen. And, there's been a lot of talk about London running Team A and Team B in their scrimmages. So maybe they're going to go the route of what we saw from the Dynasty this past season. And, maybe Group A will go in and play the first 2 maps. And, if they don't do anything, maybe the second squad will come in. We don't know, but, there's so much unknown about that team that I'm really excited. And I kind of just wish the order of the Spitfire matches were reversed, where we would see, that Battle of EU, which we'll get on Sunday, swapped with that Saturday game, because I feel like those 2 matches in particular are going to be night and day differential here, because you have London basically going into the wood chipper on day 1, and then you have a more intriguing match on day 2 in this case.
Yeah, well, let's be real with London. It's not Team A and Team B. It's Team C and Team B.
Potentially.
Let's be real here. They don't have a good A roster. I'm scared to death of their B roster. But yeah, no, I would prefer to see London versus Paris on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you have to have New York in there.
Absolutely.
So, London versus New York is a rivalry. I mean, it may not be this year.
No.
Because London is a totally different team, but London versus New York has been a rivalry for the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, New York has been probably definitely the most consistent team in the Overwatch League. Probably second being, if we're talking surely based off of results, the Gladiators, just based off the fact that they had back-to-back top 8 seasons. So just looking across the board, obviously one of the other big things on the Dallas side was we got the Gladiators versus the Vancouver Titans, and there's a lot of hype around both of these teams for different reasons. You have Fisher taking off, on a new team again, going up against his former team. There's been a lot of hype around the Gladiators tank line, especially. A couple of question marks about the DPS, but the support duo we're not going to have any questions about at all. In the grand scheme of things, is this the game of the week? Do you feel like that game will be the closest out of the lot between both of these days here?
I mean, all right, in theory, yes. It's going to be the most intriguing and the closest game of the week. Will it be? Probably not, because some game like Dallas versus the Valiant will be super close or something like that. But in theory, Gladiators versus Vancouver is not only A, the best matchup of the week, but B, probably has a chance to be the closest.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have 2 top 4 teams. And I think that's pretty much a consensus, is the Gladiators and the Titans are top 4 teams. For the most part. Some people have Gladiators maybe at 5 or something like that.
Either way, the lowest I've seen them for the most part have been still top 8.
Yeah. So and there's no other battle that highly of ranked teams this whole week. Right. I mean, the other closest one would probably be San Fran versus Dallas.
Would it? I think, honestly, if we're talking just based off of where they placed last year, Toronto-Paris would be the second one.
Oh, well, yeah, but
that's not necessarily the best in regards to quality of teams, but closest to where they had ranked, yeah.
Okay, closest to where they had ranked, yes, but not in terms of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, both these teams, Toronto especially, basically has a whole new team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even remotely the same team as it was last year.
Yeah, that's another thing, too. Obviously, Toronto, after seeking out, some pretty big free agents from some of these other teams, I wonder, because, this is their only match this week for them. If Beast comes out, he gets that first game under him, and then we see them kind of like level off at that point. You know, it's just more Toronto just needing to get their feet underneath them, and then they could really start to hit the ground running at that point. Because obviously, like right now, a lot of the talk has been about, well, like, can all of these big names actually come together to make a good team? Because, you know, we've seen in the past maybe like some big free agents pickups just not panning out, but then you just kind of have like, are these names bigger than like the some other parts at this point in regards to the overall team environment? So I'm really hopeful for Toronto in regards to what their ceiling could be. You know, this is going to be a good year for sure for potentially, knowing that, granted, like, I don't think he's top 5 in any role, but, you know, he's going to be that flexible DPS option that you need on this team. So he's going to be willing to play just about anything, regardless of, you know, what is in the pool and what isn't in the pool. So hopefully his stock value would actually go up throughout this season, now that we'll be dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate boomer bust team. Nobody knows what the hell Nubbix is going to do. Nobody knows what Beast is going to do. Like, we've seen them play, and there's a chance that they're good, but there's also a chance that they're just complete trash.
Mm-hmm.
Especially working together. I'm also not sold on Kareev. I have not been sold on Kareev even last year. His Ana play, top notch. Everything else
kind of fell off.
Yeah. So it's you know, and Surefour, yeah, like you said, he's great flexibility, but he's not top 5 at anything. Agilities is sure. We'll just go with sure. Yeah. It's you can't trust him. You trust him about as much as you trust Flower to pop on. And I don't know. I am not sold on Toronto, and they could come back and bite me in the ass. But I'm just not sold on the hype of Dallas Fuel 2.0. Like, they bring in the big names, but they're not going to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see. I think Paris has a better chance. I think people are sleeping on Paris.
Yeah, and a lot of that just because Sparkle doesn't play for 2/3 of the season, and you know that is a legitimate reason. So I feel like a lot of it is just going to boil down to Soon and XCI in this case, to see how they're going to be able to do as a DPS duo for, you know, that first large chunk of the season. Hopefully they'll do well. But I do have, you know, pretty good faith in the coaching staff that they have pieced together there during the offseason, as unlikely of a landing destination as it was in regards to Paris. But anyway, so moving into Sunday, we kick off again at 10 a.m. Pacific time over in the New York homestand with the Battle of EU with London versus Paris. Then we go into the rivalry of Boston Uprising and New York Excelsior for the last series in New York. And I will say, like, I appreciate the fact that they chose what they consider to be the bigger match, whether it was rivalry or, you know, just on paper for the ones that are closing out each homestand. Because you got Boston versus New York on one side, and then you have the Shock going up against the Dallas on the closing match for the Dallas homestand event. Now, that being said, I really don't expect either one of these to be anything but a blowout, but you know, that's as big as a match as you can ask for, given the teams that we're playing, I feel like. So, looking at the other Sunday matches, the other one at 2 p.m. on Sunday at the Dallas homestand was the LA Valiants going up against the Vancouver Titans. So, I think this is the Overwatch League learning from their mistake at the Atlanta Reign homestand, where Atlanta kind of played, like, in the middle, and then everyone effed off and, like, called it a day early. So, you know, having a home team on last is definitely the right move. And in case you guys didn't realize this, based off of the scheduling, that is like that for both Saturday and Sunday. So it does give you the option, like, hey, if you want to come in a little bit later, you can do that. Obviously, you should stay for the whole thing. But, you know, the overall quality of matches, I'm not, like, overly enthused by for opening weekend. I was hoping for a few more marquee matches. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but at the end of the day, the big thing is, how full are these arenas going to be? Like, how is the overall environment going to be now that we have embraced a home and away structure within the Overwatch League? And I'm not worried about ticket sales at either one of these homestand events. New York has already had the championship, and, you know, Dallas had homestands this past year as well. And, you know, those did fairly well, so I'm fully expecting the Shock to get booed as soon as they come out on stage for that particular match, and then only for Shock to, like, lay the boom on the Fuel at that point. So I'm looking forward to that one, if only to see, well, how big of a difference is there, again, this season between the Shock and the rest of the league.
Yeah, like, it's nice that, you know, like you said, they end it with the home team. This Sunday is not good matchups. let's just get that out of the way right now. Like, London versus Paris probably is the best matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got London versus Paris, okay. Boston versus New York. New York, 4-0. 3-0. 3-0 now?
Yeah.
3-0. We can't say 4-0. 3-0. Valiant versus Vancouver, 3-0. San Francisco versus Dallas, as good as Dallas has become, I still expect a 3-0. Maybe 3-1? Maybe? But yeah, it's kind of weak games, but I think the pageantry will be there, and people will still enjoy it. Like, obviously, people will still enjoy it. So I wish I was going. I'm not worried about attendance either, because, well, I mean, it's Dallas. They've proven that they can be beastly, and it's New York. New York is always going to sell up.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Ed, did you see the New York roster reveal video?
I have not.
Oh, you definitely need to go back and check that out. I think that was probably my favorite one out of the lot in regards to, like, what they did for theirs.
Aren't they in the old ECW arena?
I haven't even looked at the what is it? Does it say Hammerstein's Ballroom?
I think that's it.
Then yes, that would be the old ECW arena. Yeah, it is. It is.
I was like, oh, now I'm just picturing, like, they're on stage and then Enter Sandman hits. And here's Sandman standing out there with his cane, chugging beer. And RVD.
Yeah, when he's not banned on Twitch.
Wait, RVD's banned on Twitch?
There was a recent segment on Impact Wrestling that featured RVD and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's girlfriend that had some censored nudity that ended up getting Impact Wrestling banned on Twitch. I don't know if that's still an ongoing thing, but it was very recent, like within the past month.
Nice.
So yeah.
Good for you, RVD.
Yeah, and then he ended up, like, I think he came out with merch that said Rob banned Damn, and I couldn't help but laugh at that.
Oh, RVD. Love you.
He's living a life, and he's actually a heel right now, which I thought was very amusing. I saw more personality because I did order their recent pay-per-view on Fight TV. I saw more personality from RVD in that than I did the entirety of his ECW and WWE run, which I thought was pretty entertaining. But anyways, so a couple of other points I want to bring up are, like, there's been a lot of talk about the Valiant actually performing a lot better than what we perceive them to be. And a lot of that is off the back that KSP is an absolute nut. Now, with that in mind, Ed, I know kind of like going in, we were expecting maybe not too many changes out of the DPS lineup with KSF and Shax. But, you know, is there an outside chance that KSP can just kind of take over for either one of them, because it seems like we've seen this kid pop off in contenders time and time again, and he's been kind of heralded as really like one of the best Widows outside of Korea. But it seems like the high praise is coming in from some pretty notable teams and names out there.
I mean, anything's possible. Like, there's gonna be some big name surprises benched.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens every year. Like, it's it's gonna happen no matter what you say. So it could be that KSF is benched. I don't know. I don't know much about KSP.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I'm gonna have to trust them, but I still don't see, even with KSP, we were not that worried about the DPS on this team.
That's true.
It was healing and tank line that were the massive concerns. So the fact that KSP might be performing really well does nothing for the fact that their tank line is not good and their support line isn't that good.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it really depends on how we value how many mistakes a DPS popping off can cover up versus saying, like, tanks that are really good at opening space for more lackluster DPS to kind of help offset how they are, like, on an average basis.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, like, hey, how much of this can you cover up? Be like, if it's anything other than, like, 75%, then who knows? Like, I don't even know if they can pop off that much.
Right. So with that being said, and I know you got stuff to do tonight, so let's keep this around an hour at this point. So you should probably wrap up.
I apologize, people. Yeah, I have to go pick up the parents from the airports. They're coming home because they're snowbirds.
Yep, and to be fair, like, it was a lighter week too. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and close things out so Ed can get to going at this point. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to head over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We are always looking for ways to improve the show. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, be it Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League, or all of the above, consider checking out our website for Overwatch Recall. And then every Sunday, we do the weekly Recall, which has a listing of all the prior week's episodes on our website, as well as on Twitter at OW Recall. Now, if you would like to support our podcast network, consider a couple of things. We do stream on Twitch, so Twitch Prime subs are greatly appreciated. Otherwise, the tier 1 is $4.99. Or if you want a cheaper option, consider checking out our Patreon page, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So you can find more info at patreon.com/OWL Network. So you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow. And I'll be honest, like, I want to do more stuff with our Patreon, but I don't know what yet. So if you guys have any suggestions on that end, please reach out to me on that end, because, like, there's more that we could be doing rather than just kind of, like, leaving it and doing, like, general updates here and there. So let me know what you guys would like to see incorporated into that. But outside of that, just a quick announcement. We will be bringing Game Night back again this month. That will be in a couple of weeks on Saturday, February 22nd, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which will be after the games for the Overwatch League that night. So join us for another night of some competitive games, whether workshop or not. Hopefully we can fill out a lobby so we can do some
nice.
6v6. So we hope to see you guys out there for that. And of course, we'll be live streaming those games. So join us on the 22nd for games on that end. But Ed, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can contact our show?
Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website that you can go to, and that's www.owlnshow.com. And then we are also on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Come join us on the Discord. Follow all our happenings at discord.me/OWLN show. We are on Twitch. We are a Twitch affiliate at twitch.tv/OWLN show. So help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So we have the Overwatch League Network, which airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have OWL by the Numbers, airs Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, unless Ramses is late. And then Heroes Never Die usually is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule. So be sure to follow us to be notified when we go live. Again, we do have the Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. You can follow me personally, Edinar, on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm over on Twitter at TumblyDrunkCTR, and I am streaming on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at twitch.tv/TumblyDrunk. So with that being said, guys, enjoy opening weekend. We hope to see you guys in Discord if you guys want to hang out during the games and just, talk things through on that end. And if not, we will see you guys back next week. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Heroes Never Die. I've been your host, Simply Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Ed. And we'll see you next time, guys. Take care.
Peace out.